Welcome, everyone. We are back. We are here, episode 27 of the Awful Takes podcast. My name is Nabahi.
Hello, I'm Wallied from Sir Gator Productions.
And today, I am still waking up. So bear with me for a little bit. I'm sipping on some coffee right now, but I am thoroughly excited. We're bringing in the new year of 2025. It's kind of insane. I guess a little like timestamp info. Back in the day, I remember there was a video game I really loved called Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And in that game, it was set in the future in the year 2025. And it's so weird to think that it's like, now if I were to play that, it's like, oh, it's not really the future anymore. It's right now. But we're excited for the new year. I just want to give a little shout out to everyone who's been watching. We crossed 4,000 views before the end of the year, 4,000 channel views. We are closing in on 30 subscribers. Absolutely amazing. Thank you guys so much. And our new highest watched video for some reason is Ponyo.
Yeah, that was a big surprise.
Yeah, like I'm just very thankful for everything. Like this is really cool, and I'm just super amped for this new year. Again, last year my resolution was to start this whole podcast and everything, and I'm glad now looking back we've been doing it. You know, it's really awesome. So thank you guys so much. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, I appreciate it. How have you been?
I've been good. It's surprisingly laid back for me this year.
Nice.
Than the holiday season. Usually it's pretty busy for me this time around. Usually in this time around, but surprisingly not this year. It's a lot more laid back.
I was very happy that I wasn't working at Starbucks because normally I'd work Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, New Year's. And it was nice just to be like, I have these days off now. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely good. Give yourself some time.
Definitely. All right, guys. I hope you guys had a great holiday season, and I hope you will join us here in the future for everything we have planned in the new year. We're going to be covering our best of, worst of, most anticipated movies. We're going to be definitely getting our hands into the Oscar season when that starts happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And next 2 episodes after the next 2 is going to be our album reviews. What we're going to do is start out with our favorite album of last year. Wally's going to recommend his, and then I'm going to recommend mine. And moving forward, we'll definitely be covering a lot more music and stuff like that. So I know I've been promising that for a while, and here it is. So we're going to get it done. But thank you guys so much. There's a little interesting piece of movie news. If you're joining us for the first time, me and Wally generally like to cover movie news that piques our interest in the first, part of the podcast, and then we get into the review. So if you want to skip ahead, we have timestamps in description on the slider. If you're on Spotify, it's there as well. So if you want to skip ahead, please, by all means, do so. But an interesting piece of movie news that we've been kind of on and off covering over the past couple months is Christopher Nolan's next movie. And there was rumors at a time that it was going to be kind of like a period piece back in the day. There was talks that it was going to be like a kind of horror-esque movie about vampires, things like that, which, I mean, just sounded interesting, but it also, for me, I was just like, that sounds so out of field for Nolan, that just sounded crazy. And now we're getting official info. I believe it was a couple weeks ago that they are reporting that actually Christopher Nolan is doing an adaptation of the Odyssey. When I heard that, like, I'm telling you, it just kind of threw me off. Like, I was just like, whoa. Obviously, I mean, the Odyssey is one of the biggest, stories ever created. It is basically, if you guys haven't heard of the Odyssey, I know it's kind of like you go through it in high school or middle school. It is about the story of Odysseus. He is the king of Ithaca, and he wanders for 10 years trying to get home after the Trojan War. His journey is filled with mystical creatures, the wrath of gods, and perils. Meanwhile, his wife Penelope and son Telemachus fend off suitors vying for Penelope's hand and Ithaca's throne. It is quite the story. I've read it. There have been multiple adaptations of this story. I guess one of the ones I'll briefly mention is the Coen brothers' "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" is like a loose adaptation of the Odyssey. And they do such a great job, like the sirens, like they're singing on the side of the street, like cleaning clothes. The Cyclops is John Goodman, and he's got like an eye patch over one of his eyes. So just stuff like that, like that was for me just a really cool adaptation of the Odyssey. So now that I guess we have Christopher Nolan coming in, he's known for his portrayal on movies of, focusing more with like the sci-fi kind of stuff like that. And then also kind of his period pieces. So this really just feels out of nowhere for me. If I'm just being honest, like I would not have expected him to adapt this story. However, I'm very interested to see where he goes with it and how is he going to choose to do this? Is he going to take a camera crew out on sea for 6 months? Like that would be insane.
It'll be like Waterworld.
I don't know, Wallied, how are you feeling about this?
I am very, very curious now, just hearing about it and with the cast and everything, to kind of see what kind of interpretation he'll take with the Odyssey. I don't know if it'll be more in line with like his style that he's been doing, like an Inception or like a Tenet, or if it's going to be something more of like out of his field, like he's going to lean more into like the fantasy elements and kind of the more epic elements of the story. Yeah. So I'm definitely intrigued, a lot more intrigued than when I first heard about like the casting, for sure.
No, I agree. That's the one thing that's still kind of a thorn in my side a little bit, is the casting. Like we said before when we heard about like Tom Holland, Zendaya, Matt Damon. I feel like if these guys are to ever have a surprise moment in their careers, for me, Christopher Nolan's probably one of the few directors who can make that happen, which I'm just praying to God that is what happens. I hope I go into this movie and I hope I'm watching it and Tom Holland just totally surprises me, Yeah. Same with Zendaya, same with Matt Damon, They're all good at what they do. I'm not trying to knock what they do. However, I just feel like when I see Tom Holland, Spider-Man, it's great. But then when I see him as Nathan Drake, it kind of just feels the same,
Not so much.
It just feels like I'm still just kind of watching Tom Holland, Same with Zendaya, seeing her in the Dune movies is just like, it's okay, but it just doesn't like surprise me. It doesn't knock my expectations out of the park, I guess. So I don't know. I'm just kind of torn between two worlds, but I am excited. If he does go for more of the fantasy aspect of everything, man, I will love to see his practical effects on some of these creatures. However he chooses to do it, I am there for it. I just can't wait to see, because obviously we know Christopher Nolan doesn't really rely that much on like CGI and stuff. Yeah. So that would just be really interesting to see his kind of practical take on everything.
He'll be using real wooden boats. He'll actually construct them.
And I really feel like if they are going to be out on sea, like he might just be like, "Yep, that's where we're going."
It'll have me more excited. For sure. I definitely,
that would be,
because I feel like Nolan is like kind of one of those directors where it's like he really kind of relies on a lot of the old school style of like filmmaking, just using practicals. So it definitely will make it much more exciting to watch, especially compared to a lot of the things coming out now where everything is kind of used with CG and CGI in some way, shape, or form, whether it's noticeable or whether you don't even notice it at all. You know?
Yeah. And I guess this could be kind of a new alleyway for Nolan to kind of adapt stories and things like this.
Mythologies, definitely.
Mythology.
Yeah.
Who knows if he would follow this up with something else. But again, this is totally just something I wasn't expecting. I know earlier on the show, I mentioned like he's kind of in two different areas, like the period pieces and then
the war dramas and then the high concept stuff.
The high concept. So I thought he was going to choose again, like one of those two, but here he is just kind of just throwing my expectations off at least. I never would have guessed that this would happen, but I am excited. I am very excited. We're obviously just, a couple years away from when this comes out. So
I believe it's 2026 of summer. So 1 year away.
It's insane. But we'll have to see when it comes out. The cast list looks crazy. Obviously, I think I saw a few other names like
Anne Hathaway is definitely one.
She's coming back. She's one of the few actors or actresses that has worked with Nolan more than 2 times. So that's right, kind of insane. And then also I think Charlize Theron was on there as well.
That'll be exciting.
I really like her as an actress, so that is exciting. But yeah, the Odyssey.
Yes.
2026.
Let's put the countdowns on, guys.
I want to see Christopher Nolan as the Cyclops.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy. You know what? No, I want Tom Holland to be the Cyclops. And Zendaya, she can be one of the sirens, I guess. All right, guys. We have another recommendation from an amazing director, Wallied. What are we going to be talking about?
Yeah, so we are talking about our final Christmas film of the season, Tokyo Godfathers by Satoshi Kon, who that was our first recommendation on the podcast, was Paprika. So
it was.
It's kind of like we're coming back full circle, beginning the year off with a Satoshi Kon film.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to our review of Paprika, definitely urge you guys to check it out. That movie was great, and I still think about it a lot. So always watching Satoshi Kon films is just an absolute joy. And really just, man, he was really amazing at what he did,
Really, though. Yeah, absolutely. So, another simple story. This is actually his most simple film out of the 4 he made. And this one is about a homeless man, a trans woman, and a runaway teenager who are pretty much all kind of friends. They kind of all hang out with each other. And one day during Christmas, they find a baby. And the whole film is them pretty much coming together to help find the parents of this baby. And it is a wild, wild goose chase from start to finish. It's a pretty simple one. This was the second to last Satoshi Kon film I had saw. And this was one that caught me by surprise because of just how kind of the mix of melancholy that you see throughout of being wholesome, but also being kind of more of a sad tale of like people, these 3 dealing with homelessness during the Christmas season, and how they kind of all connect with one another through their friendship and through the struggles that they go through throughout the film. You know, you get to know more about these characters. So, Nabaki, what was kind of first impressions kind of going through your head of this one?
Right away, the setting and everything just feels more like kind of calm. Like you said, just kind of laid back. I know with his other films, things definitely kind of get moving right away. One of the big takeaways with him in general, and I swear he's like one of the few directors that is surprisingly how old these movies are, just surprised me, is the atmosphere. I feel like this director just nails atmosphere to its utmost potential. I don't know what it is, but the way things are lit, the way the drawings are, the backgrounds, I just can't get over it. Like watching this movie, I was just like, everything is just absolutely beautiful to look at. The atmosphere just feels so visceral and so genuine. And to me, that was just such a crazy thing to experience because in all of his movies, it's just the way the artwork and the drawings are done I swear, like it's some of my favorite animation, like in movies.
He has a really unique animation style for sure compared to a lot of other anime directors, you know, especially around that time also, you know. He's got a unique character design, you know. All of them feel so different from one another, you know. You can just tell already like which one fits their personalities really, really well and everything. Yeah.
But overall first impressions, like that was just a big takeaway for me, is his artwork just absolutely amazing and really just, like you said, kind of stands apart from a lot of other different, you know, animations and things. But the story is just really kind of grabs you right away. I know when this group, when you're first seeing them, it's almost like you don't think this is going to work to the same degree that some of his other movies are. You know, you're kind of going into it with a different kind of perspective, because when you see these three interacting together, it's just like, okay, like this feels different. You know, I guess it feels similar to Paprika, and it's like a group that they all have their own, you know, special attributes. They're all kind of diverse and everything. But throughout the course of the movie, man, do they work together really well. And it really doesn't feel like he's putting these people together for the sake of diversity. You know, they all blend together. They all meld together super, super well. And again, the humor in this really lands. The voice acting is amazing. And the character designs I just really, really love. And it really just caught me off guard, because you hear the title, you see what it's going for with this, you know, story, and you almost are like not as interested, because it's not like Perfect Blue, you know. Perfect Blue has that interesting aspect of right away you're realizing that this person is in a kind of like a dangerous situation, you know. Same thing with Paprika, you know, that you get thrusted into this dream world right away. But no, this one feels like more like a character kind of piece, you know. It's focusing on these people and the situation that they're in, rather than any kind of grandiose kind of plot pieces or story, you know.
Definitely.
I really enjoyed it. It was a nice movie for this, you know, kind of Christmas season, and it doesn't really throw it. The Christmas is not like the focal point of everything, you know. It really feels more like a setting rather than the main takeaway.
It takes it more on like the back burner for sure, you know, but it still plays like kind of a bit of a vital role, considering Christmas miracles are kind of a big thing, and they do play a drive in the humor throughout, especially. Like one of my favorite moments is where the homeless guy, he's been like all beaten up, and he just sees like this angel, and you almost think like, oh, is he dead? But then like it kind of like zooms out, and it's like you realize, oh, she's just like a drag performer pretty much. And I just thought that like whole setup and payoff was just like really great.
And I love the unveiling of each character's background. You know, it happens when, you know, you're least expecting it. They kind of go into these backstories and adds a lot of weight to everything you had been watching. And I feel like a normal director would probably take time early on to kind of go through that stuff.
Yeah.
But some of these characters, you don't find out their backgrounds, or, you know, kind of like those pivotal moments until like kind of the second half of the movie, you know? But it really, really works. And you kind of realize what all these characters have in common, you know? And yet each of their story feels different enough to where it's not just, oh, you know, tragic background number one, tragic background number two, tragic. No, these feel like unique situations that feel very real and feel like they could happen to people, you know?
Yeah. And the thing I love too also about that is like their struggles are all very different. You know, one was going through like gambling problems. One was having a terrible relationship with their father. And then the other one was kind of more like a silly, you know, like she just had like a big temper problem almost, you know. And I love that like the film kind of shows that their different unique situations and how they ended up becoming homeless almost to begin with, you know. And I guess one thing also I love about the film and how it starts up is like you don't really get like, oh, this is them meeting for the first time. Like you can tell they've been hanging out with each other for a while, you know. I think she even mentions like I think he even mentions like it's been like 6 months, you know, since she left her home, you know. And I love that aspect so much, you know, because sometimes when you watch movies like this, they always have to like have like, oh, it's them meeting for the first time. But I like that you kind of just get sucked into like, no, they're just kind of like somewhat friends, you know. They kind of need each other. It's kind of mostly like all the social interaction they mostly have, you know.
And I feel like it's one of the advantages of the film medium is, you know, you can just throw the audience into the situation, you know, like there's no reason you need to focus on linear storytelling, you know, like, again, I feel like if this was a kind of lesser experienced director or, you know, someone who didn't have a passion for the story, they might focus on it more in a linear sort of way.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, I like the way things are unfolded with their backgrounds, obviously with the baby and everything, and how that baby got put into that situation in the first place is just super interesting. And the story does go into some dark areas that you aren't expecting, but there's still the kind of humor in a lot of those scenes as well, you know? Which I really enjoyed. And it feels a bit more, again, like kind of realistic, you know, like I feel like movies often just really focus on the sadness and the depression of everything, and you are left feeling emotional. However, I know when I'm in situations like that, you kind of use humor to like process these things, you know?
Yeah, you almost try to find like the joy and optimism in those dark situations, which is something that surprised me, and I noticed this time around. I was just not expecting that the film to go in that direction, but it really does, especially in like the second half with the whole climax and everything, and you kind of find out that this woman has been going through like a hardship struggle. She can't have babies and everything like that, you know, and you kind of see how everyone processes these struggles throughout the film.
No, definitely. Again, like it really is such a shame that Satoshi Kon is not with us anymore. I can't imagine what movies we would be talking about right now and how he could have had a big hand in ushering in this kind of new era of artists and filmmakers, you know, because always when you're talking to film enthusiasts and things, you hear his name brought up. However, I feel like he deserves kind of that general population to know who he was as well. You know, this guy had so many different ideas and stories, and he didn't just put himself into a box and he didn't stay in it, you know?
Yeah, he definitely like just tested the waters on everything. Even before he had passed away, like the film I had mentioned during the Paprika discussion was Dream Machine. And it was actually going to be more of like a family friendly film, actually, compared to a lot of the other films he was making. And even just seeing the concept art for it and just some of the animation they had worked on, because it was like halfway into production, is just like, man, it's like I can't even imagine like the type of film that would have been, you know, him working on like a kid's film, you know. Yeah, it is very, very unfortunate, but I feel like watching this film, it's like you kind of get a taste of like that wholesomeness, whimsicalness that he was probably going to expand on more with like a Dreaming Machine almost, you know. And I just love to see it, honestly, you know.
I was going to ask, so with this movie, what were your expectations kind of going into it? You know, like what did you hear that it was like a Christmas, you know, more laid back kind of story, or did you just watch it and you just kind of had it unfold for the first time?
Yeah, watching it for the first time, I actually had no idea what the movie was about, you know, because I kind of just made the assumption after watching Paprika and Perfect Blue that just all of his films were kind of like very dark and complex. But when I watched this one, I was just so surprised just how like wholesome the whole film was, how much I was laughing throughout. Just the way the story was unfolding and everything too was like a very big surprise. And then just how much I just was loving the characters, you know. I was even thinking to myself watching it for the first time, I'm like, I could honestly watch these characters for hours and hours and just never get tired of them. Especially Hannah. She's easily like probably my favorite character in the whole film. I just think she definitely is like the much more comic relief of the film, but there's also a lot of heart and charm to her, especially her wanting to become a mother. You know, it's kind of a bit heartbreaking, you know, realizing like she doesn't really have like a partner or anything, you know, and this baby means so much to her, you know, because she feels comfortable, you know, feeling like a mother almost, you know. Yeah. And I was just surprised like the film had taken that direction, you know, watching it for the first time, you know, and watching it for the second time, I just loved that character even more. But yeah, no, it definitely was like a big surprise. I was like, I didn't know he could do comedy really well, but he really did it well on like his first try, pretty much, you know.
And definitely, like, again, just going into it, like, it starts in a different way than his other movies, and I wasn't expecting to get emotionally invested in the story, but like you said, throughout, it's just, it works so well, and it has these moments for each of these characters to where you find yourself getting emotional, and it's like, I wasn't expecting this with this group of people, you know? Yeah. Like, and I again, that's just a mark of a good storyteller and a good director. The vision in his head, he knows he can make a lot of people emotionally invested in this story. And he's able to portray that in good writing and amazing directing. So yeah, that just totally caught me by surprise, because again, like the first 10 minutes, I was like, this is interesting. It's good. But I just was like, I don't know if I'm going to feel for these characters. And by the end, I was like, man, that was really good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. One of my favorite moments in the film is the scene where he sees his daughter, oddly coincidence, at the hospital, and just like the talk that he gives her, almost of like him having all this regret of not being there for her, you know. And that scene for me is just so heartbreaking, you know. It's because like you see it and you see how him leaving just had this very big impact on her, you know, where instead of her going the same route that her dad did, she ended up just becoming like a very successful nurse, and she's getting married and all this stuff, you know. And that scene for me, I felt like it was just like, because like throughout the film, it's like you kind of get to know that character more, but you kind of find out he was kind of lying a bit, you know, and you even see Hannah get mad at him after because of it and everything. And it's just like, I just wasn't expecting like the film to go in that direction almost, you know. But that was like a scene where I was just like, wow, you know, he almost gets to like it's almost like a conclusion of sorts with that character, you know, that I just wasn't expecting, you know. One thing also, I guess, that surprised me a lot too, maybe just even the first time watching it, but second time around, was just how action-packed the film was, you know. I kind of was expecting it to be more like a slice of life film, you know, but I was surprised just how many action sequences there were, especially at the beginning with like the Spanish guy and like that whole crazy chase and everything. And then of course, like I was mentioning earlier with the climax and that, I love that the taxi driver comes back into play and everything.
Yeah. That was good.
And I loved like that whole, like he's all on his bike and he's like almost getting hit, but then he's like on like the truck door and everything.
It's great.
It was like so awesome. It was like a great way to like kind of wrap up the film and everything too.
No, I agree. Again, when the movie starts, you're not expecting that. Like there's a great chase sequence in this movie. There's great climax in this movie. And with how tame the story is, it doesn't feel out of place when it goes in these sort of directions, you know, like obviously with the Christmas season, like there are movies that do that, you know, like we've talked about Jingle All the Way, where the climax does totally feel like out of place, you know. But in this movie, it's like, surprisingly, I was like, I'm not bothered by it. It doesn't,
it like fits, surprisingly.
Fits,
And then one thing too I also really loved was just a lot of the music choices in the film. You know, there's a couple Christmas songs that like you hear, but it's mostly like just original score, and I really loved like just like the kind of like electronic kind of jazzy score that you got throughout the film. It like surprisingly fit well for like the season and just like the atmosphere and tone that it was going for, considering it's a lot more quirky and silly throughout. I was kind of surprised by the ending. I'm kind of curious how you felt about the ending, because I'm kind of like half and half on it, but how did you kind of take away that ending?
The ending for me does feel a little abrupt. I felt like they maybe could have expanded on some of these things, but I wasn't. It's not like I left disappointed. I don't want to make it seem like, oh man, it just cut off at such a pivotal moment or something like that. But it did feel a little abrupt. But I think, I don't know, I feel like this movie feels kind of like episodic almost, you know. It feels like you could be watching like a series or like a TV show, you know. So I guess it really didn't affect my enjoyment at all. Okay. So I'm kind of pulled in both directions a little bit, but I mean, it served its purpose. I'll say that it definitely served its purpose for me.
Yeah.
What about you?
Sure. I would say part of me loved the ending just because it was like, I was shocked that like, oh, she's interacting with her dad for like the first time in probably a long while. But at the same time, I did kind of want like a bit of a conclusion with Miyuki's character, just because I did really love that character a lot. And I feel like she was kind of the only one that didn't really get a conclusion aside from like the homeless man and Hannah, you know, especially at the club, at like the bar and everything with Hannah's conclusion. And then of course, like the homeless man, like I was mentioning with him and his daughter, you know, that felt like a nice little arc. I did want like that arc to be finished with her. Yeah. But yeah, I would just say I'm kind of half and half on it. You know? Was there anything you kind of wanted to add?
I mean, for me, again, just biggest takeaways with Satoshi Kon in general, just, oh, man, the atmosphere. I just can't praise it enough. Like the way this film is animated, the colors just caught my eye. Yeah. And I just couldn't believe what I was watching. And again, like you realize that this came out a long time ago, yet it still holds up, is just amazing. And it's some of my favorite animation. All of his movies is just, it feels like I'm watching, you know, just a pure expression of an artist, you know. It, like nowadays, I'm not trying to harp on 3D animation, animes in general, but I'm just not quite there yet in terms of 3D animation where it feels like, you know, an artist, you know. I think that's my struggle a lot with when they kind of try to tie the two together. And obviously I know animation right now, you know, they're under super hard time constraints and, you know, people are getting overworked. So they kind of have to rely on tricks and stuff to get it done in a certain time frame. However, man, this just blows everything out of the water in terms of animation, at least for me. Again, like it just the first 5 minutes, I was just like, wow, this is amazing.
That intro sequence is awesome.
Oh, so good. But yeah, definitely just one of my biggest takeaways. Really enjoyed it. And again, 10 minutes in, you don't think you're going to be emotionally invested with these characters, but by the end you really can't help but feel for them, you know, and that is great. And he's done that in pretty much all of his movies for me. He just finds the right way to convey that and the right way to make you care, you know. This is, we were truly watching one of the greatest directors in animation and in directing period, you know. It really is such a loss. But I definitely, premise alone, hearing about this, it's almost like you didn't think you were going to enjoy it, but you really did, you know. That's just an absolute win in my opinion. But yeah, I overall just really loved it. Can't recommend it enough. Especially around the Christmas time. This movie provides a nice stroke of the brush, you know, like you can have Christmas movies that are comedies, you can have some that are emotionally heartfelt, you can have blends of both, you know, and this movie just really felt like it's a nice amalgamation of everything to enjoy in Christmas movies, you know.
Definitely.
But really enjoyed it.
Nice. Yeah, for me, this is one that I actually loved a lot more than I saw it the first time. I ended up just loving the comedy more. The characters were just super hard-hitting. There's definitely a melancholy atmosphere to the whole film that I really have yet to find done better, honestly. I really love the blend of it being very wholesome, but also being very sad, you know, and that's kind of how it does sometimes feel during the Christmas time. There is a lot more of like a melancholic feeling, you know, of just happiness, but also kind of sadness at the same time. And I think this film just perfectly captures it. Obviously, I do kind of wish the ending was a bit more conclusive. I do wish it was like a little longer, just because I just honestly, again, could watch these characters for another 2 hours or so. But yeah, overall, I really love this film a lot. I might even be my favorite Christmas film, honestly.
Nice.
At the moment, I mean, there's still more Christmas films I got to check out for sure. I still need to see It's a Wonderful Life. But yeah, no, I really love this a lot. I'm thinking score-wise, honestly, probably like 9.5 out of 10, honestly. Yeah, this was a very big surprise. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. Yeah, I really love this film a lot. I obviously do wish Satoshi Kon was still alive and still with us. I felt like he probably would have made an even better, like, wholesome film like this, honestly. But yeah.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Definitely check it out. I believe I watched it on Prime. It was streaming on there. So please check it out and let us know what you think, because this another swing and win for this director. Score wise, I'm thinking I'm at a solid 9.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, definitely worth watching. And it was nice to see a director again, like, not just go for something similar, you know. That's one of my kind of critiques with some directors, and especially those that I love. They stay in their own realm, you know, and sometimes they kind of I think they kind of sell themselves short, you know, especially in interviews. You hear them sometimes, it's like they don't think they can do those things, you know, but you'll be surprised. Like, I would applaud the effort more than anything, just to see one of my favorite directors kind of go for something new, go for something different. You know, there's no harm in trying. There's no harm in trying to broaden your talents, you know? But I mean, who knows? I think those directors, obviously they make great films and I love it, but some of my favorite directors, like I said, they don't follow that blueprint, you know. Each time feels like, no, we're cleaning off the slate and we're starting new, you know.
Different brush, different kind of painting. Almost,
exactly. So yeah, I'm thinking a 9 out of 10.
Nice.
I can't wait to talk about some of his other movies. Eventually we're going to get to them. I know last year I checked out some of his other movies, and yeah, they're really amazing, and I can't wait to talk about them in the future.
I'm glad to hear, man.
So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But what a great way to start 2025 with this review. Really, if you have the time, guys, check it out. Tokyo Godfathers.
Yeah, not too long of a movie either. That's kind of the one thing too I love with Satoshi Kon also. Is like his films are like 80 to 90 minutes.
Exactly.
It's kind of crazy, and they're still just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, really are. They all are their own specific kind of masterpiece in a way. And you really can't say that about a lot of directors.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, check it out. All right, guys. I'm thinking next.
What we got?
God, this is hard. Next recommendation, man. What do I want to do? I can't think of
Pick
anything.
anything you want.
I know I really can pick anything I want.
Got the power.
This is hard. I'm just trying to like, we've talked about so many movies, and I'm trying to, surprise you guys in a way of like, kind of broadening what you might think I like in movies. Granted, I don't think I'm like some super out there person who loves, I'm super unique with what I like. No, I don't think that at all.
Not a Houseu type.
Yeah. No. Man, I'm trying to think something. This is hard. Let me go to the list. I really didn't plan this out. Like I was just so focused on our upcoming reviews that I was like, oh shoot, I have to make a recommendation, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, guys. After much consideration, after a much needed self-evaluation,
What we got?
we got 1996, the Coen brothers, Fargo.
Perfect.
This one was actually one of the last Coen brothers movies I had seen. And after watching it, I was just totally caught off guard with how this movie just devolves into absolute insanity. But it was really great.
Sounds up my alley.
Yeah. And obviously with me, like, especially with the Coen brothers in general, just a little forewarning. I really enjoy, it's not my favorite type of humor, but I really enjoy like kind of dark humor. And I think this is where the Coen brothers succeed at it the most. This movie is really funny at certain parts. And some of the humor is a little darker. Some of the humor does feel like, wow, that's kind of shocking. But
went there.
It's really funny.
Okay.
So I really can't wait to talk about this movie. And I know you hadn't seen it, Wallied.
Yeah, it's on my watch list, so I've actually never seen it. So this will be exciting.
And this was one, again, after watching so many of the Coen brothers movies and going through their whole filmography. Arriving at this one, I had heard about it for so long, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like it as much. Yet I still really enjoyed it, and I think it's one of their best films, honestly.
Oh, sick.
So I'm super excited to talk about this. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely I would recommend checking this one out before you watch a review, because when we're talking about the ending of this movie, it spoils a lot, and you're just going to kind of think like, wait, what? And I'd rather you just watch the movie and just totally get involved for the ride. It really is absolutely amazing. And the way everything unfolds just really, really works.
Okay, sick.
Yeah.
Wow. Alrighty. If
you haven't seen Coen Brothers, 1996 Fargo, please check it out before our next review. And yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We're really excited for the future, and
it's a lot to look forward to.
Look forward to. And if you guys have any other recommendations or things like that, just feel free to leave a comment or, do what you got to do. And we will see you on the next one.
Good day and good night, mates.